start this now. So we'll give you that one there. All right, and I'll start the audio. Alrighty, welcome to Beyond Recovery, everyone. I have a special guest today. Joining me, his name is Salim. Salim, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. I'm well, thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me. And yeah, it's I'm starting the first day of my 2-week vacation, so I'm pretty relaxed.
That's great, man. That's one of my favorite times of vacation is like day one, because it's like the farthest point from the end of the vacation. It feels great, right?
Yeah, I'm still I kind of ease into my vacation. I'm one of those guys that it takes me a couple of days before I stop looking at emails.
Yeah.
So yeah, today was it's just sort of dipping the toe in and you know, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
That's great. Now, a question for you: when you're coming out of the holiday, do you do the same thing? Do you like to know what's kind of waiting for you on the other side? Do you start kind of peeking your eye on those emails on the way out of holidays, or do you wait till you come back?
Yeah, I used to be like that. I'd start the weekend with, you know, maybe on the Sunday I'd start to look at emails and whatever. And what I found was my anxiety levels and stress levels would just peak as soon as I even went to my. So now I wait for Monday morning and I just, you know, whatever happens, it happens. I know it's going to be, you know, it's going to be intense. So I just don't worry about it. I leave it until I need to, you know.
That's good, you know, because I've tried both sides of it, and I had the same kind of thing where it's like I thought it was going to help my anxiety by kind of keeping track on things, when in fact I would just have these nasty spikes when I'm trying to relax. So yeah, no, I totally relate to what you're saying there for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and you are calling in from it's evening where you are. It's about time of recording 2 p.m. for me here in Edmonton, Canada. And tell the listeners where you're from. I believe it's 9:30 right now for you.
Yeah, it's as they say in England, they say 9:30, so it's 9:30 at night.
9:30.
Yeah, I'm in just outside of London, so about 30 miles northwest of London. So yeah,
cool.
we're just starting to touch on spring here. So nice time of the year.
Absolutely. Now,
whole 2 weeks of sunshine in the year that we get over here in the UK.
I've heard this about that over there for you guys. Eh? Yeah, that's you know. So my brother lives down in Vancouver. That's like one of the rate on the coast as well, right? So we're so he gets a lot of rain. So up here in I guess if you're talking about weather, Edmonton is all about the long cold winter. So we are getting touch of spring as well. Mind you, it was minus 16 Celsius today randomly. So that was kind of strange for mid-April. But hey, what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah. Well, that's Celsius. Yeah, it was 16 degrees Celsius here, and
nice.
Yeah.
There you go.
It was nice, but about 20 miles an hour winds. So not quite enough to get my motorbike up, but anyway.
Oh, nice motorbikes. Here we go. We got the plans for spring and summer going on.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, let's dive into this. I'm very interested to see what your story and your journey is here. So we'll start off with this. Yeah, tell us about your early upbringing and getting into adulthood, and pick 2 or 3 events or situations that really formed your stories around alcohol.
Yeah, look, it's interesting, right? And what I find interesting when you talk to people with with substance abuse problems or alcohol addiction or whatever it is, just the diversity of kind of what's formed them, right? For me, it was, and I never realized this until probably 12 months ago, that there were certain events and actually throughout my youth and as a young child that sort of formed my unhealthy relationship or dependence on lack of I guess confidence and self-esteem, right? Which if you talk to anyone that I know or work with, they wouldn't believe it, because I come across as being very confident and charismatic, and I have a leadership role at my work, so it's naturally people think I'm a bit of a an extrovert, but
extrovert,
but it's almost like I have 2 separate personalities. So I mean, I was born in New Delhi in India, and I lived there for 4.5 years, 5 years, and then and I have an older sister, and my parents, Michael and Shireen, and they were sort of middle class Indian family, you know, hardworking, so on and so forth. And then we migrated to Australia in the early 80s, so 1981, when we moved to Australia. And my parents were very very professional or work orientated. My dad had he was an engineer, had a really good position working in a construction sort of organization in India, and my mother was working in hospitality, so they were always working. So as a little kid, 2 or 3 years old, I was I didn't really spend that much time with my parents, and I don't. I've got a few sort of memories. I don't know how many people remember early childhood, but I've got very few memories, and they all seem to be quite bizarre memories. Like, I remember being the clearest memory I have is I was maybe, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years old, and I was in a park. There was a park just down the road from where our apartment was, and there was a little bird, like a little finch or whatever they are, the small little bird playing on the ground, and this bird couldn't fly. And being a little kid, I wanted to go and collect the bird, and everyone was sort of gathering around the bird and everyone was telling me, don't touch the bird, don't touch the bird. But of course I didn't. At that early age, I already thought these people, I didn't trust them. So I've grabbed the bird, and this poor bird, I remember it looking around as frightened because it's surrounded by all of these humans. And when I caught the bird, it died, like literally. So I mean, oddly, that's my very first memory, So we moved to Australia when I was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old. So again, moved into a typical sort of middle class suburb, the only Indian family in a very white neighborhood. So that was tough. Going to school, being the only little dark kid at school. It was, being bullied and all that sort of thing, at school. And I never realized that I was until, I don't know, like I said, last year I started therapy, and I'll touch on that shortly. But I mean, some of the things that I remember through my childhood, my parents always were always drinking. Like, my dad would come home from work every night. There was a tray with whiskey, and it was never beer, it was liquor. So every night my parents would have 3 or 4 glasses of whiskey. They'd sit there and they'd talk or whatever. And if it was, the first thing he'd do was he'd come home from work, put the news on, sit there and pour himself a whiskey, and my mother would do the same thing. Never really, it was up to myself and my sisters to sort of get ourselves ready for school, go and have a bath, clean up, sit down, have dinner. And we'd eat late, so my parents would have had a few drinks before dinner. They'd have another one after dinner, so it was just that sort of, it was quite normal for me. I never really had much of a relationship, particularly with my dad. Like, I can't actually remember having a proper conversation with him until at least, I don't know, 19 or 20, so
wow.
It was, I remember, he was a strange sort of guy. He had a pretty rough sort of upbringing with his parents, and he had a big family and that sort of thing. He would always say he didn't know how to express emotion. So that was just the way he was with me. So I kind of thought that was normal. It's only, I think, as an adult, when you have children of your own and you realize, I don't want to be like he was, that you realize that he could have controlled that. So, and then alcohol in Australia was, and it still is, it's the culture is a drinking culture, right? As soon
Mm.
as you can, whether you're legal or not, it's almost expected that 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds will sneak out, get someone older to go and buy them alcohol and sit in the park and drink. My very first experience with alcohol was exactly that. We had it was me and two buddies from school. He had one of them had an older brother. He went and bought us a bottle of Jack Daniels, and we bought a bottle of Coke and poured the Jack Daniels in there and just drank. Sat in the park and drank that. The next thing I remember was I got robbed. I got, ironically, by people from school. And I realized this because 2 or 3 weeks later, I saw one of the guys walking around school with my watch on. I got, we got into got robbed, got into a fight, ended up in hospital. And that was my very first experience of drinking, 15 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So that, yeah, 2 or 3 experiences. I think it would be, the binge drinking, the that experience really, just the common thing where, I remember winning our basketball grand final, and the way we celebrated was, someone went and bought, 3 or 4 cases of beer, and we went and sat in the park next to where the basketball courts were, and we drank, like 12 at 16 or 17 years old, sitting there drinking, 12 cans of beer. It's just, that was normal,
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of shapes your mindset and your the way you see things, or you see alcohol, throughout the course of your formative years, right? It's a strange culture. It really is.
No, that gives a lot of background and context. Thanks for that, for sharing that. It was very similar in spots in Canada, like where I grew up. I like what you say. I very much resonate with what you say as part of the culture. It's almost expected. Yeah, it's like this rite of passage, especially as a young boy. It's like, okay, well, that's how it's almost like, instead of a rite of passage that would be in, like, Native American cultures or something like that, where it's like, you get taken out to the woods and you have this whole thing. For us, it's like, here, drink these 12 beer. That's like your rite of passage.
Yeah.
It's strange looking back on it, but very,
very absolutely. Even, I was also quite active, right? So I used to play football, and I used to play rugby and basketball and whatever. And there's this, even the professional sports over there, the sports people, like, they'll go out. If you go to a bar on a Saturday night, and that your football team's played, rugby that afternoon, you'll see them in the bar, right? Wow. There's no such thing as professional athletes not drinking. Right. They've got this thing called Mad Monday, which is the first Monday after the season finishes. Every single rugby player, basically, they go out and spend the entire day getting annihilated, getting drunk.
Wow. Yeah.
Quite often you'll see them in the news because they've been arrested and done something stupid or whatever, and it's just the culture. It's insane.
That's I did not know that about that. That side of the sporting culture as well. That's that's something else for sure. Well, let's talk about so getting into adult life. So we got the background from you. So adult life to where you are today. Let's speak a little bit about how the relationship with alcohol changed over that period of time.
Yeah, look, it kind of, I'd say I went through this stage where I found myself, I didn't trust people. Again, now I kind of, I understand where that came from now, because I've been, through therapy and so on. But what I didn't realize back then was, I had some traumatic sort of experiences when I was young, particularly, one when I was, I was about 8 years old, and being bullied and physically threatened at school. There was a few kids that were 3 or 4 years older than me that threatened me with a pair of scissors, like school scissors.
Wow.
So ever since then, I sort of started to isolate myself, and then I went to in my teenage years, I the same sort of, not physical threats, but I just found that my friends and school girlfriends and so on, I'd get, my girlfriends would cheat on me, or my friends would talk rubbish about me behind my back and all that sort of stuff. So I just started to sort of become really insular. And then when I left school and went on to work and things like that, the culture was very much in order to try and fit in and be part of, especially, I mean, you go into work, you're young, you want to fit in, you want to, you don't, I particularly didn't want to repeat what I went through at school and what have you, and you want to make friends, right? And again, it was a very, I started working, I don't mind saying, I work in the finance industry. So as a young guy working in the bank, after work, everyone, would go out and have a few drinks. Thursday night would be like, you have happy hour at the bars or what have you. So, again, it was quite a dominant drinking culture. So that kind of continued, and I got married quite young. And so that kind of stabilized me a little bit, but my relationship with my parents wasn't really strong. My relationship with my older sister was not good. So what I didn't, that sort of developed this this insecurity in me where, the people who were even closest to me, I didn't really have a strong relationship with. So what I found was I would sort of, I didn't realize that I thought it was me, right? So I thought maybe, is it, why does everyone, I must be the common denominator here. So there's something wrong with me, right? So, so I would drink, and because when I drank, I had this, I was a friendly drunk, right? When I drank, everyone liked me, I was funny and all of that sort of stuff. So I would drink, right? Because that's, everyone thought you're the life of the party.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I found, I quickly found that there were certain drinks that didn't, I became quite aggressive on things like vodka. I couldn't drink vodka, or I couldn't drink tequila. I became aggressive. So I stopped drinking that, but I would tend to go towards the other stuff, right? So, that, and I always had that problem where I didn't know when to stop, right? I don't know if I think it might be addictive personality. I'm sure it is, right? But I just, but it would always be, I could, at first I started off, 7 or 8 drinks or whatever, and still that's quite a lot, right? But I'd have that one, and I never knew when it was, but I knew as soon as I'd had it that I'm going on a bender here. Do they have that term in Canada? Bender?
Oh yeah. Oh definitely.
Yeah.
I've been on a few benders, let me tell you.
yeah. So,
definitely.
And it's too late by that stage because, I guess the alcohol's caught up with you and whatever, and I can't control what I'm doing. And but my wife would always say to me, like, you don't know when to stop. You don't know when to quit. Like, don't do it. And I'd be like, no, I'm fine. And then bang, I'd have that one. It's done. Right.
Right.
And then, and I'm sure we'll get to this, but I realized not so long ago that, what I could usually manage up until 7 or 8 drinks, it was now the first drink. It was like that very first drink. I didn't know whether it would be, I could have 1 or if I could have 3 or 4 or 5. Like sometimes it was just the 1, and it was like, no, I like it. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So as soon as that started to happen, well, I don't know how long that's been happening, but I realized that there's something wrong here. But yeah, so adulthood, there was I've had a few sort of, it's almost comical, that you think this is a play, you know, the experiences that I've had. So I've had a friend of mine commit suicide. He had mental illness, and he found out that his girlfriend was cheating on him. So he threw himself in front of a train. That was when I was 23. I had an uncle who he was suffering from depression, and his wife left him. So he gassed himself in his car. Then I had another uncle who died. I don't know if you guys heard of there was a fire in a building, in a block of apartments in London about 2017 it was.
Okay.
And so he was in the building. He was in the top story, and basically, I mean, he had dementia, and he was religious, and he had this poster on the, like, he believed that he was going to go out, like in the Book of Revelations. There's a particular one particular what do they call
like a passage or a
passage that says, like, Jesus will come through on in chariots, and there'll be a wall of, wall of fire, and so when the building caught on fire, he thought this was his time, and his son, who's my cousin, who was his full-time carer, couldn't get him out. So then that happened. In 2014, my sister was, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Sydney hostage siege. It was a terrorist siege in a coffee shop in Sydney. My sister was the last hostage in that scene, and I was actually working in India at this stage. So I was about to board the plane to fly back to Australia to see her, and I was thinking 11 hours on the plane. I don't know if she's going to be alive when I get there.
Wow.
Just before I board the plane, they got her out. So and during that time, I was receiving text messages from the gunman, because he got all of their phones, and he was text messaging me saying, "You need to post the ISIS flag on Facebook, otherwise, I'm going to kill her," and all of this sort of nonsense. I've had my eldest daughter, who in 2018, she turned 18 in September. A month after she turned 18, literally, she had a headache on the Wednesday. On the Saturday, I had to admit her into hospital because she started becoming delusional. She's still in hospital with a undiagnosed condition that, but they think it was autoimmune encephalitis, which is basically a brain infection caused by the immune system attacking itself. She was in a coma for 2 years, and so the last year and a half she's been out of a coma, but she's still heavily sedated. She basically lays in bed. She communicates through blinking and that sort. So it's been quite a traumatic sort of I don't know, last 10 years. So I found myself particularly through depression. I was clinically depressed. I got diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and I found myself. I've also got quite an intense job, so I needed to go back to work to sort of get my normality back, because when my daughter got sick, I stopped working for 12 months. And luckily my company just gave me time off, and they paid me and all of that sort of stuff. So I just, I was sitting in the hospital in intensive care next to her, laying with all tubes and machines and all of this stuff, literally for, from 11 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. And, doing that every day, it messes with your head,
Of course.
So I'd do that. I'd spend an hour on the train getting back home to North London, and then I'd just open up a bottle of whiskey and just drink.
Yeah.
So, it just, before you know it, you get dependent on something, and you think you need alcohol to take the edge off your day because you just can't cope. but it's doing is perpetuating that vicious spiral, right? Where you doubt yourself, you doubt everything, you hate yourself. I rode my motorbike into the back of a parked car, that sort of stuff.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
So
my heart goes out to you on all of that. That is a lot of things to have gone through. Like you say, it's almost like it's almost unbelievable, like stranger than fiction, to have all that lined up as such over a 10-year period. So my heart goes out to you on that.
And
for sharing that.
Yeah, it is, and you kind of, you hear these theories, like I was saying to you earlier. I watch a lot of podcasts, and particularly, I hope you don't mind me plugging someone, Russell Brand. So I watch a lot of, and he talks about
love Russell Brand. Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
and so what I like about him, he's quite neutral, and he talks about real things, and you and him and Joe Rogan, and they were talking about simulation and so on. And sometimes I just sit there and I think, this must be a simulation, because my life's a joke, right? I mean, this can't be real, right?
Right?
Yeah. So
I was one, like, as soon as when I was hearing you talk, I'm just like, you think of these quotes that people try and I'm sure somebody, either it's run through your head or somebody's tried to tell you before, like, the universe only gives you what you can handle.
Yeah.
So obviously the universe has a pretty high threshold or understanding of you if they're giving you this much stuff to deal with. Certainly, right? It's like,
but sometimes you're just like, you know what? Just give me a break, man. I just want to kick my heels up for a little bit,
Right.
I mean, but it is true, right? And it's what I've learned. I mean, it's strange, right? Because it's almost like you grow a lot. I think, people say to me, particularly at my work, people say to me like, they admire me, or I'm so I'm so strong or whatever. And I think, well, what choice do you have, right? You've either got, it's when you get into that situation, there's no sort of options. It's either you're going to fight. And from my perspective, it's I either be positive. I'm not going to give up on my daughter, because anything but saying I'm going to be here tomorrow is giving up on my daughter, and I refuse to give up on my daughter, right? So that's not an option for me. So I have no option but to say, tomorrow's a new day, like, and it's going to get better, right?
Yes.
But you say that, but it takes a lot for you to be mentally aligned with how you want to be, you want to respond.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's man, yeah. And you know what? Like, and there's like the post-traumatic stress thing, like, yeah, like that's so, yeah, that's such a different beast, different animal to have to deal with. And I'm sure it unravels in different layers and everything too. So, I'm curious to see how it ended up with you, putting an end to the drinking. Like, what was the moment that you had that was sort of your, whether it's a rock bottom moment or at least an epiphany where you're like, okay, all of this is happening and I have to remain, present, for my daughter, for whatever's going on. When was that shift for you that you're just like, okay, so I'm at my breaking point here?
So I think there was a couple. There was a couple. I think it took a lot. What it was there was a series of events that started to get me toward, like, it broke me. It's like it was like chipping away at your soul, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was one particular one where she'd been in hospital. She got sick in October, and then I hadn't seen her. No, I'd gone in. It was just past Christmas. It was the first Christmas she was in hospital, and the doctors took like 3 weeks off. The neurologist and all of that took 3 weeks off over Christmas, and then I remember it was January 6th, 2019. And it was the first meeting with the neurologist. And so I've gone into the hospital, and they take you into, they said, oh, we want to meet with you. and they take me into this private room. And then as I open the door, there's like 6 or 7 different people who I've never met before sitting around a table, all looking quite somber. Nurses in there and like senior medical staff. I'm thinking straight away, I'm starting to think, whoa, I don't like the situation, right? You get really, you get defensive. It's like you're being ambushed. And then they sat me down and they basically started to tell me about all of the negative shit about my daughter. All of the negative stuff about my daughter. And I was like, well, it sounds like you guys are giving up on her. It sounds like you're telling me there's no hope. And one of the doctors, she didn't mean to say it, but she said, yeah, there is no hope. And that kind of just broke me, right?
Yeah.
So I walked out of that room and I went to a cafe because I needed to get my head out of the hospital. And I was sitting there, and I've got a 17-year-old. She was sitting opposite me, and my wife was sitting next to me. And I started to cry, right? And like this guy who was sitting opposite on the table opposite me, I didn't know him or anything. He was just there with a friend of his. He started to laugh at me because I was breaking down, and that kind of that was the moment that just said to me, like, I just don't want to be here anymore, right? So that was like the tipping point, and I started to get really bad with the drinking. And I remember there was one night I went through about 5 or 6 bottles of wine, just sitting there drinking bottle after bottle after bottle, and then cocaine started and all of that sort of shit. Sorry again. But then I think there was a couple of things. I think one was I realized that I couldn't do it to my younger daughter, and I couldn't do it to my older daughter. Like I needed to be there, and I'm very, very. I've got a super relationship with my younger daughter, and I couldn't abandon her, and I just kept thinking, how would I feel? Like I know that she'd think that why did he do this to me, right? Why did I wasn't I good enough? Like how I felt when my parents neglected me, and I didn't want to put that through her. So I wanted to start to change, but at the same time, I didn't like myself, right? So again, I was coming back to what I was saying before. It's one thing wanting to do something or setting your mind to something, but you really have to want to do it. And I think the disconnect at that stage for me was I didn't know what was wrong with me, or what, I couldn't work out. I couldn't work, like I knew it wasn't just, I knew there was something deep seated in me, because all of this other stuff was starting to come up out of emotion, like my relationship with my parents and my father and my sister, who I don't get on with anymore as well. All of that stuff started to bubble to the surface. So I knew that there was an inherent psychological problem, but I didn't know what it was. And I didn't like myself. I hated everything that I was, so I would drink. And then, I mean, I tried to stop drinking a few times. And when I was younger, it wasn't a problem. Like, I remember when I was around 19, 20, I was really into bodybuilding and all of that sort of stuff. And I was playing semi-professional football and that sort of stuff. So I could not drink. Like, it wasn't a problem, but now I couldn't do it, to the point where I'd go out somewhere. I'd say I'll just have one beer and I'll drive home. And I'd probably have a bottle of wine, 2 bottles of wine, and I'd still get in the car and drive home, and it wasn't good. This is just a few years ago, right?
Right.
So it was that perpetual thing. And I'd try and I'd get to a week or something, and I'd say, oh, I'll just have one drink tonight. I'll start again on Monday, and then I think the final thing was, it was probably October, I'd say, last year. I was in Spain, and I'd just gone to a bar for something to eat, and I was by myself, just something to eat and have a drink, just one or two, like a beer or something with dinner. I ended up having spending a load of money buying a bottle of rum, getting absolutely annihilated. And I don't remember a lot of the night, but what I do remember was I just wasn't myself. I don't know what happened to me. It was almost like the next day I was questioning myself, thinking I must have been drugged. Someone must have spiked my drink, because that just me. But I know that wasn't the case. Like you're looking for an excuse to justify your behavior, but know it was your behavior.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
So that kind of that was it for me. That was like, no, this is not what I truly sort of. I remember I'd bought a bottle of grappa. It's like Greek. I don't know if you know it. It's like a sambuca, but it's like a Greek liqueur. And I didn't buy that on that night. It was in the hotel room. But I was so drunk. I got back to my hotel room. I don't know how I got back to the hotel room, but I remember going to my suitcase, opening this bottle and drinking. And this is art. And I just thought, the next day I just thought, it's not healthy, right? What are you doing to yourself, right? I mean, and then I got serious about really trying to, and I knew when I was serious when I made a promise to my 21-year-old daughter, my one who's sick. On Christmas Day, I promised her that I'm not going to drink anymore, and I've never broken a promise to her. So so when I made that promise, I knew that was it. Right now, I'm serious. So today I'm 104, 105 days today sober.
Nice, man. Good for you. How's that feel? That's a big milestone, man.
Yeah, it feels amazing. Like it feels. At first, I don't know. It was real. I was super proud. I knew I could do it, but I knew I could do it, but I knew I just needed to get serious. Now I'm angry at myself for putting that shit in my system to start with. Like I research a lot about alcohol and but the other thing that of course I'm proud of myself, but at the same time I've through this whole experience, through all of the trauma and kind of hitting rock bottom and going through whatever I've gone through, I've changed as a person. My idea of success is no longer I don't know, no longer money. No, look, I do okay, but none of that means anything to me anymore. My idea of success is I just want to be a good person. I just want to be like, I want to be grateful. I want to be compassionate. I want to listen to people. I want to trust people. I don't want to judge people. And it's interesting that I think it's taken me this experience to learn that about myself. Also, like, there's just things you have to accept. There's things that I can't change. Like I can't. People always say to me, "Doesn't it frustrate you that you still don't know what made your daughter sick?" And I'm like, no, because it's not going to change anything, right? Knowing what made her sick doesn't automatically make her well.
Fair enough.
It is what it is, right? It's how I deal with that situation now. And the people that I've met in the sober community are like, whether it's alcohol addiction or drug addiction or whatever it is, the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life, right? Truly non-judgmental, truly wanting to help other people because they've been there, they've felt what I felt, and you know that you don't want anyone to feel like go through the shit that you went through. Sorry, I keep swearing.
Let her rip. But it's all good.
But I mean, so Yeah, I'm grateful, I guess. That's probably how I feel right now. Still a long way to
Nice.
go.
Well, hey man, you're just, you know what? You're like, I'm sure you've heard like all the different phrases, like one day at a time, one moment at a
Yeah,
time. You
yeah.
stacked it, you know, over 100 days. So, you know, good on you, man. Congrats. Thanks for sharing
Thank
that
you. Thank
great
you.
story. So, and yeah, you know what? I love the, when you're talking, a couple things are really resonating with me. Like when you're talking here, that I can feel that there's like a distinct change in you as far as you found another reason outside of yourself. That you hear a lot of that in the
Yeah,
addiction recovery community, that promise that you made to your daughter, right?
yeah,
All of a sudden there's like, it's like let's face it, when with the addict brain, like for me, I could make all these like deals and side deals with
yeah,
myself and I'd break them so quick, you
yeah,
know, if it came to it. But if I held myself more accountable, what I did for me, my dad passed away a couple of years ago, and he'd had a lot of problems with drinking, and kind of come in between us a few times. And I was like, you know what? When I went to his celebration of life, I'm like, that's it. And that was my day one. And that was like, that is what I anchor to my
yeah,
sobriety now. So I think it's super cool. That's why it really resonates, how
yeah,
you're doing that with your promise there, which is super cool. And now I'm hearing you say that there's this like new side of you that, let's face it, was always inside of you, but now it's
yeah,
having this chance to actually come out and flourish. You're talking about gratitude, acceptance, right? And yeah, just putting yourself out there, man. So great story,
yeah.
great journey.
I think and I don't know what it's like for other people, but I certainly felt that through my experience. I always felt like the victim,
Mm,
like, and I
yep.
always thought like everybody, like, I mean, and you probably heard me say about the start of, through my child, and I was like, I was getting bullied and I couldn't trust people and all of this sort of stuff. Um, but I started to think about forgiveness as well, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, um, things happen, people change. I'm sure when I was younger as well, I'm sure I was equally a nasty piece of work to other people. I'm sure I was. I know, like, I can remember things that I did, right? And I'm disgusted at myself now, but I've grown.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, accountability, right? You start to think about, okay, like, in order to really change, you have to understand like, you have to really want to change. And sometimes that means
Yeah.
just breaking down everything about you, right? And
Yeah.
just saying,
Yeah.
acceptance and acknowledge, like, yeah, shit's happened to me, but I've also contributed in my fair share. So, if you want a clean slate, you've really got to be honest with yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. That's a good quote. That'll go in this signature. I got to write down that time. It's got to be honest with yourself. Absolutely. No, that's great. Let's get into it. Over 100 days in, let's get into some of the dynamics of of your sobriety, your recovery journey here. So when and if you are getting cravings are coming up for you over these past 3+ months, what kind of things are you doing to get over those cravings if they are coming up? I mean,
Yeah. Look,
yeah.
so one is non-alcoholic beer.
Oh yeah, man. I'm with you on
Yeah.
that. What's your favorite?
So there's Brewdog. Have you guys got Brewdog over there?
No, I bet you have like so many awesome ones that we don't have over here. Brewdog. No, I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Brewdog, it's a British company. Four mates, they got together um and they made this company. So they've got a really good one. There's a German beer called Erdinger. It's like
Okay.
it's like a light blonde sort, but the I'll tell you what I don't like is Heineken. Heineken Zero.
Really?
It's horrible.
Oh,
It's
really?
horrible.
Okay. That's one of my favorites. But I haven't been exposed to some of these other ones you're talking about. So maybe I know
I'm
mine better, right?
sorry, man.
Yeah. No, I'm down with the Heineken Zero for sure. But I mean, like I
Yeah.
say, my alternatives aren't quite as extensive as yours.
Well, that's interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
I went to a football match. England played Switzerland a couple of weeks ago in an international friendly, and I walked into this bar, and it was like in like a private section in the stadium, and like wall to wall alcohol, right? And I was like, what non-alcoholic beer, what non-alcoholic drinks have you got? And they said, oh, we've got this, and it was Heineken. That was it. wall to wall, and I'm like,
yeah, they got those, just the one.
Yeah. So non-alcoholic beer. I mean, that's if it's in the afternoon. If it's in the night, because that's when I would drink whiskey, and I must admit, every now and then, I'm like, I feel, sometimes my mental space, my headspace isn't so good, so I just go to bed.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
like I'll just go to bed. I'll watch a video or something on, just try and take my head off drinking. And so that's what bit of a boring life, but that's my kind of. How about you?
No, dude, yeah, like sleeping was big. Like sleeping for me is because honestly, like I would just drink myself to the point I would just pass out, right? So sleeping was huge. I actually enjoyed it because I would remember my dreams. I'd have these lucid dreams. So I enjoyed it. So honestly, trust me, dude, I was right there with you. I go to bed at like 8 p.m. sometimes just because I'm like, you know what? Like, it's better than getting all like, kind of not depressed, but you know how it is. Like, you start having, you get in your own head a bit. So I'm like, yeah, dude, I would go to bed too. And I enjoyed it because I'm like, I'm actually sleeping now instead of just kind of passing out. And,
that lucid dream thing. Like, I listen to loads of YouTube videos and like that help, like, like shaman beats or the third eye type, the pineal gland or whatever that's called, pineal gland.
Yeah, pineal gland.
Lucid dreaming and all that. That's awesome, man.
I love all that stuff. I'm just getting into, I just got my certification for sound therapy. So I'm getting into, different things that can kind of help you get to sleep.
The frequencies and things like that?
Yeah, all the different healing frequencies with some pink noise to kind of block out any like sound pollution around your house. And all these different things like that. It's quite fascinating. And, it's funny, I know we're going to get a little bit into music. We talked about it when we were doing the pre-interview thing, or pre-interview chat, if you will. And that's one of the things I've been listening to a lot now because, you and I were both talking about, with the hip hop for yourself and me with the 90s grunge. It's like, it's such like negative, like, I don't get me wrong, it's nostalgia, but for me, it's like you listen to it, it's all about like drug use and drinking and
it brings
me back to that. So I've been listening to a lot more like instrumental of like that, what you're saying, like that meditation kind of music that really activates some of those different areas in your brain and gets you prepped for sleep. So I totally.
I found exactly the same thing for the same reason why, like, I stopped listening to hip hop music because it was all either about murder, gangs, drugs, whatever, right? And I'm like, I don't want to listen to this.
Right.
And then I was listening to, for a while, I was listening to house music, but then all you associated with house music is the same sort of thing, right? So
totally, dude.
So now I'm much the same, just something that's mellow, sort of chill, relax, take my mind off things, whatever,
Absolutely. No, for sure. Which I guess we touched a little bit on that. I want to get into like when you got into the counseling and such. Like, what did you? So how to frame the question? I heard this really profound quote, I think in the last year, that really made me focus on what was going on with my life. And it was like, so your addiction is the secondary problem. You do it because of something, and that's a trauma that you maybe haven't addressed or you didn't even know about yourself. I was like, damn, that's good. Like, I never thought about it. Like, I was always fighting the drinking and all that, not realizing what was behind the drinking that I had to address in order to heal properly. So what did you find in your life that, like, through your counseling and such, that was sort of hidden and needed to have that flashlight come in and illuminate for you? Go, there we go. Like, it sounds like there's a few different things you had to address.
Look, you're absolutely right. And it was my relationship with my parents. I realized, not just my parents, my mother, my father, and my sister. It was just not normal. It was just, and this is going to sound that, I don't want to come across again like I'm the victim or anything here, but it was like I wasn't wanted. I wasn't. It was. I don't know. My sister used to. My sister was horrible to me. My sister used to beat me with steel coat hangers. She'd whip me across the back with steel coat hangers. She'd hit me over the head with my mother's high heel shoes or hairbrushes.
Wow.
She used to tell me that she wanted she would make sure at school that because for a while we went to the same school. This is when we were in high school, and I was just getting into high school. I was, in the junior, I think. So I was in 7th grade, and she was in 11th grade. And she'd say to me, she wanted to make sure that I had no friends at school and that I was a loner and things like that, right?
Strange.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. My mother. My as I said to you about my father, he was abusive, in physical ways, as in, he used, if I came home from school and I had homework and I didn't, I'd ask him for help with homework, and if I got an answer wrong, he'd hit me if I got an answer wrong. So
Wow.
so it got to the point where I was scared to make mistakes. But I just switched off from schoolwork because I didn't want to do my homework, because if he saw me sitting there doing, and I couldn't do homework in my bedroom because I didn't have a study table or anything like that. So I had to go out and do it on the dining room. And if he saw me doing my homework, he'd naturally want to come over and get involved. And, so that wasn't great. My mother just didn't seem to care. She just seemed to, not really turn a blind eye to stuff. I remember when I told you I was little 6-year-old boy, going to school for the first time in a different country, little Indian kid in a all white school. She took me to school. My first day of school, she dropped me at the front gate. She didn't even take me into the office to meet the head. She just basically, she took me to the front gate of the school. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You're on your own. And that was it.
Yeah.
My parents never, I was quite good at sport and all of that sort of stuff. They never came to support me ever. Never saw me playing like sport or anything like that. Ultimately, I realized that it was my relationship and the neglect that I had as a child that just basically, and there was this one incident when I was 8 years old. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, and it was during the lunch. We had 2 lunches at school in little school, and it was 15 minutes for morning tea, and then you'd had lunch, and it was 40 minutes. And you had it in 2 halves. So the first 20 minutes, and then they'd have a hooter, and you'd have to sit and break for 2 or 3 minutes or whatever, and then they'd have the second half, and you could run around and play. During the second half, there was these 3 boys. They were in, I think, 6th grade, and I was only in 2nd grade. And they took me into. They grabbed me. They dragged me into this classroom. Basically, they took out some scissors, and they threatened to to cut off my penis with these scissors. And I remember I was 8 years old, right? And I was petrified. And so the only thing that stopped was the second half. End of lunch bell went, and all of the teachers and everyone started to run towards the main sort of assembly area, because that's where we had to assemble. And so they ran off, and then I made my way over to where the assembly area was, not knowing anyone. I just sat in a corner at the back of the assembly hall by myself. And that was the moment that I realized that I said to myself, it's just me. It's me. I can't trust anyone, and when I was in therapy, I think it was a 2nd or 3rd session that I realized that the therapist made me go back to that, to think about stuff that happened during my childhood, because I don't know if you know this about trauma, but what you basically do is your brain doesn't want to deal with traumatic experiences, so it locks it to the front part of your brain, the frontal lobe. Okay. And so basically what happens is anytime, like flashbacks, for example, is your brain trying to process that memory. So basically it moves it to the front of your memory, the frontal lobe, and it doesn't process that memory. And you basically, it forgets everything, right? It builds a wall. So it was during that session that I realized that was the moment, right? Because I turned around to my therapist and I said, that was it. That was the moment. And I didn't realize when I said it. And then at the end of the session, she said to me, do you realize that you said this? And it was like, wow, right? So yeah, that was it, really. That kind of shaped the rest of my mindset for a very, very long time.
So like you say, it was like something along the lines you said, like I'm on my own, basically. You went in that corner of your room and you're like, I'm on my own, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it felt. And that's probably what the back, in your programming for a very, very, very long time after that, right? That was probably a mantra that you had, right? And
my friends, that I'd grow up with, and one of my best friends at the time, I haven't spoken to him in a while, but he said to me, he actually admired that about me. He said, you just shut people off, Salim. He was like, if you don't like something, you just shut it off and we'll never hear from you again. And I was like, yeah, that's me. So for a while, I thought that was a good thing because that was my protection mechanism.
Yeah.
But it's not, right? Because all you're doing is you're isolating yourself, right?
Isolating, avoiding. I had a conversation with my fiance recently about this, and she was saying, we're kind of getting just a riffing on, okay, what's like the number one thing that prevents people from doing stuff? Where say fear. Well, it's a lot of just like avoidance, of confrontation, avoidance of feeling those feelings, avoidance of, and it's like, it's totally true. It's a lot of people, like you say, you shut down or you remove yourself from a situation. It's all different forms of avoiding a feeling or a problem, right? And it's profound to think about, like, in that term, right? But I could see where that would be, but good on you for doing the work, like doing this. How has it been for you to go to like therapy or to counseling and make these realizations?
It's been hard, man. It's been really hard. Like when I first started, when my daughter first got sick, I was getting therapy, and the therapy was just speaking to a therapist, right? I'd go and see her for an hour, and I'd just sit there and tell her about my feelings, and she'd say, breathe, right? And it was great because I could talk to someone, but I wasn't dealing with anything, right? I just like, okay. Right. And then I started to see a psychiatrist because Christmas 2020 Christmas, I got really bad again. I've been on antidepressants for, I don't know, 3.5 years, almost 4 years now, and I got really bad to the point where I didn't think I was going to make it through Christmas, and I knew that I needed to start seeing someone again. So I went to my doctor, and he said, you need to see a psychiatrist. And that therapy is hard, man. It's really hard because, like you said, there's no avoiding anything, right? It's full on confrontation, because the only way you're going to get through it is by addressing it, by confronting it. Yeah. The problem with that confrontation is you feel the emotion again. You live in the moment. Like like the way that the therapy is she's visually taking me back to that time. It's like I'm going, and it's like an out of body experience, but I can feel what I was feeling at the time, but I can see myself going through the experience. It's really bizarre, right? But it broke me, but at the same time, it made me realize things and think of things in a different way, like how to process things, and maybe I could realize that it wasn't me, right? There's other factors that resulted in me feeling this way. It wasn't me.
Yes. Man. But that's a brave thing to do. So it's the fact that you're undertaking that coupled with you staying strong with sobriety, like, man, good on you, man. My heart, again, just hearts out to you for sure, dude. Like, good for you.
Thank you.
For sure.
I won't lie. I mean, I probably needed to go and see her again for at least 6 months, but I'm scared, you know, like there's like, you know, like there's some shit that I need to deal with, and I'm just like, I just don't know if I'm emotionally ready for it right now. But
yeah, no, I got you. I got you. No, I hear you on that one. Awesome, dude. Yeah, I got a few. Got into a little, what we call like the rapid fire round. So, you know, obviously I love having this long form conversation, getting some real good insight and context into this journey that you've been on. But yeah, here's these ones, and they start off a little bit, you know, on point for as far as what we've been talking about, and a couple fun ones here at the end as well. So, are you ready?
Yes, let's go. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, where did your energy go when you first sobered up?
My dog.
Yes.
Yes.
Therapy, eh? There we go.
Yeah, my dog. I love it.
What kind of dog? What kind of dog?
I've got 2 cockapoos.
Cockatoos, rad.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool. They're pretty smart, right? From what I hear.
They're really smart. I mean, he's just he's full of love. You know, it's you know, and it's all he wants to do is he just wants my attention. You know, he just wants to be with me, and that's awesome. That's all I want. You know.
It's like you're their whole world, man.
Yeah. And that's all they want. They're nothing else. They just want to be with you, and that's it. I just the rawness and I don't know, the genuine love that a dog has for its human or its owner or whatever, right? It's unbeatable, right? Unconditional love.
That's what, dude, I was about to say that. It's like the true definition of unconditional love. So yeah, absolutely. No, I love it. That's cool. Great answer. Where does your life still feel a little bit out of balance with in regards to your sobriety and recovery right now?
Yeah, I think my headspace, to be honest. You know, like I just touched on it. Like there's still issues that I need to deal with, right? I mean, particularly with regards to my father, you know,
right.
And it's a lot to be going through, and I just feel like I need to, you know, I just need to get myself a little bit stronger, like emotionally, be prepared. I think sometimes you still rely on other people a little bit too much. You know, you want to be liked regardless of how much you say, you know, but you're what there's a quote that says, only a person who's happy with being alone will truly ever be happy with other people's company.
Ironic,
something
right?
like that.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I heard a variation of the quote. Yeah, it's completely true though, right? I think especially with us, like right now, you've been talking about being in like the recovery community. And I remember there's a TED talk that's great. The title of it is something to the effect of the opposite of addiction isn't recovery, it's connection. Because it's like we've isolated ourselves so often, and especially if we're drinking by ourselves, the whole thing is like connection. So there's like, we're tribe. We're like, we want to be a part of the tribe, right? So no, for sure. I could see that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's probably it, I'd say.
No, that makes sense. If there was one thing that you could add to your life right now, if you had a magic wand, you could bring something in that would just be like, man, this is going to enhance my life here. What would it be?
Add to my life. Easy, my daughter, right? Having my daughter back. It'll come, but it's a long way, you know, and I miss her voice. I haven't heard her voice in 3.5 years. So my daughter.
Beautiful. That's great. What are you listening to right now, music wise? We've touched on a little bit. What are you going to listen to after we're done here? What's your
right? So the last thing I listened to was Maxwell. Have you heard of Max? He's an American R&B singer.
No, I'll look him up.
So he's from 2000, maybe 2000. But Maxwell, I'll probably listen to some sort of hypnotic sort of, the mantra chant or something that, that's more sort of, the chakras and that sort of, it just mellows me out, and it just gets me into that sort of really, that meditative state. I enjoy that a lot, just meditating, because I stop thinking.
Absolutely. I love it. I'll send you a track. I'm just finishing up my first like sound therapy track. I'll send it over to you and see what you think.
Awesome. That'll be awesome. Yeah, I do like that. I find myself on 645, is it megahertz or whatever?
Yeah.
That's kind of where
that's the one that you like, eh? Okay. So the one I have is like, I'll send you, like, I think it's 528. It's like it's supposed to be really good for like your heart chakra and all that. So
nice.
But yeah, I don't. Yeah, for sure. I love getting that whole, like, man, you can really go down the rabbit hole with that whole thing. It's really interesting.
I really believe in it, it's because your brain's all electronic input, like pulses and so on, right? I think it's great.
For sure. Like, that's what they say. We're like vibratory beings. Even our DNA is like, it's all, everything is vibratory, which is, pretty cool, man. I love nerding out on that kind of thing. That's cool that you're into it too. All right. If you could travel to one location on planet Earth, where would you go and why?
Okay. The Himalayas. I've been there twice. Cool. So 2 different trips I've done there, and I've ridden motorbikes across the Himalayas, like 4 or 5 day trips, and camping in the middle. And it's
sounds amazing.
It's heaven on earth, man. There's no connectivity on your phones. It's a dirt road. Like, it's literally, it's like untouched land. The people are amazing.
Really?
You've got these wanderers that basically they're nomads. Their families, they put on the back of their donkeys or whatever, and they move to a place for 3 or 4 months of the year, and then they'll travel and they do that for their entire, and it's amazing. It's, the simple things, like when you've been riding a motorbike across a desert for 2 or 3 hours, and you stop on the side of a road at a little shop, and you have a cup of tea, like just ginger tea, right? It's the best. It's the best tea that you've ever tasted in your life, and that's when you realize, like, life's not about all these grandiose things. It's the simple things,
100%. 100%. That sounds amazing. Actually, that's a great answer. And Salim, my last question, I always like asking this one at the end, just because it's such a very expansive question. It's what is the biggest thing you've always wanted to do and haven't done yet? Keyword being yet. And what's prevented you from doing it?
I had to think about this one, but the answer is obvious. Climb to base camp at Everest.
Really?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I'd love to climb Everest, but I know I'd die, right? I mean, but so base camp would be good enough for me. Yeah,
that's epic. And has there been any like attempts at it, or what would be your?
No, I mean, I'm not a climber. I've never done it before in my life, right?
Fair enough. So there would be some preparation, both physically and mentally, before.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe when I've got more time on my hands and but it's one of those things where, I mean, I read all about it. I watch documentaries, and I'm just fascinated with just the whole man versus nature thing, right? It's but yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, no, it was super great answer. Yeah, the Everest. Like, I'm glad that you're watching, saying, going up there, because there's like, isn't there like some inordinate amount of frozen dead bodies that are like currently? Can you imagine, dude, like walking by and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And generally they only find them once there's an avalanche or something like that, right? Yeah.
Oh man. And there's like so much garbage and stuff. And yeah, it just sounds like, it's a different experience. Yeah, we'll go with base camp. Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah. That would be cool.
Salim, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing and just being so honest about your journey and coming on the show today. Great guy. I wish you, all the best for your family.
Thank
Very
you.
genuinely, straight from my heart. My heart goes out to you guys, and just thank you for your honesty, dude. And let's keep in touch for sure. I want to have you back on when you have another milestone, when you're a year in, and see what's changed for you. And we'll definitely keep in touch on your Instagram. Anything you'd like to plug? Do you have any websites, or if anybody listening to this would like to follow you or anything? What would you like to plug?
So no, I mean, if they look you up, I follow you on Instagram so that they can find my account. Don't really want to plug anything. I mean, but yeah, I guess just wish everyone luck on their journey, and love and support, and wish everyone success.
Brilliant. Okay. Awesome. We'll just stop the recording here.